Good morning, everyone. Pardon me. I'm Arnold Gibbs. My company is Terracon Consultants, Inc., and I'm a member of the U.S. High-Speed Rail Advisory Board. And I'm a constituent of Congressman John Mica's 7th Congressional District from Florida. It's my pleasure today to introduce our leader for the future of high-speed rail, Congressman John Mica.
Well, thanks so much, Arnold, and good to be with you this morning, and welcome to Washington, those who are coming from around the country and around the world. Appreciate my past work with the High-Speed Rail Association. I want to particularly thank you for your contribution, your testimony, and active participation. Andy, Tom, and others were full participants in both the official hearing that we held in Grand Central Station, and then we had a little roundtable discussion. Sometimes the hearings are a little bit staged, and you don't get the good exchange that you need. And I'm going to try, as the chair of the Transportation Committee, to bring together and some folks in some more informal settings. I call them roundtables, whatever. It's an opportunity for everybody to participate or people to add and contribute. And I appreciate what you've done coming together, your discussions. And was it Andy in there that said, that got this about all sewed up? But I think we've got a few challenges ahead. I'm sure some of you watch what's going on in Washington and are trying to figure out what the hell's going on, but it is an interesting process. It's an interesting time when some supporters of high-speed rail have converged on both sides of the aisle. I've enjoyed my work with high-speed rail. I actually got involved back in the 80s with Senator Hawkins, who passed away recently, but she was a U.S. Senator from Florida from 1981 to 1987, and was her chief of staff. She took an interest. It piqued my interest, and way back in those days, we were visiting some of the high-speed rail around the world at that time. United States, of course, hasn't had true high-speed rail, still doesn't have high-speed rail, but we were looking at some of the models. I think probably coming away from this, now I do have this little report, and I've got up, this is the report that we published last year for my committee, and tried to look at doing things a little bit better. Stop sitting. The title of it is "Stop Sitting on Our Federal Assets," and one of the section deals with producing high-speed rail in the Northeast Corridor. Can you go to the next slide? And of course, we pointed out in our hearing in New York, the president said there's no reason why Europe or China should have the fastest trains when we can build them right here in America. I believe that's true. So again, a convergence of both sides of the aisle, myself, long-term interest. And the interesting thing is most people don't know that in Congress, if you ask people, and yesterday was quite a day with the administration's announcement to additional commitment on high-speed rail over the next 6 years, but a lot of reporters I was talking to did not know the difference between high-speed rail and what we're doing in this country. Unfortunately, to date, we don't have really a model of high-speed passenger rail service, and we used at the hearing the example of the Paris to London 186 mile an hour average speed, Tokyo to Osaka 167. Then Amtrak, we actually were kind of Amtrak. We gave the Acela the speed for the portion from here to New York City from New York City to Boston, the average speed is 65 miles an hour, as some of you know. So this was something that we pointed out to try to let folks know beyond this group and the public, educate officials. You might be interested to know on my committee we have 59 members, one of the largest committees in Congress, 33 Republicans and 26 Democrats. I point that out because of the 33 Republicans on the majority side, 20 are new members, 19 had never served in Congress before. So we have a little bit of educating to do on not only with the public, but also with new elected officials. Some time ago, the administration, well, I've been beating them up from the very beginning. Did you see my quote yesterday? I thought that was rather creative. They asked me about giving the administration $53 billion for high-speed rail, and I said it's kind of like giving Bernie Madoff another shot at investing your investment portfolio. And I said this morning maybe I should call Ray LaHood and when he gets on the phone say, how you doing, Bernie? But I don't think he'd appreciate that sense of humor. But we have gone back and forth on how you spend the money and how you prioritize on projects. And when Mr. Oberstar was chair, we did two hearings, one in Florida and Miami and one in Chicago, and we had planned to do another one that we never got to, and that was the reason we targeted, again, I think a very important priority, not only my priority, but what I think should be the nation's priority, and that's the Northeast corridor. That is the only corridor that Amtrak and the government have some say in or own the right-of-way. They came out with a proposal after hammering them for some time with a 30-year proposal, $117 billion, and I said that's not acceptable. I think it can be done in half the time, and if we would bring in public-private partnership, I believe that we could not only speed up the time, but we could get significant participation as far as construction, financing, development. But you're not going to become involved unless you have some opportunity at the operational side, which is the only side that has the cash flow. Of course, there is cash flow from the federal government, and most of you are trying to follow that cash flow as the different projects emerge around the country. One of my concerns is that in launching high-speed rail around the country and not having success is that it will hurt the effort. The two projects that, of course, you know have the greatest potential for success, and as far as high speed, the first, of course, is California. The problem with the California pick is that even if they build it and they've now expanded the stretch, the ridership in the location they've picked is not the best, is not going to be the best, and it won't be the best for some time. So it probably will be, may be able to achieve high speed as we know it either by our federal definition or international definitions. But the problem is we may be lacking in ridership, and it may have to be heavily subsidized, and that's not the very best model to start out with. Some people point to the Florida project, and you know that's only about an 80-mile section. It probably goes about 80 miles average speed per hour, while the train can itself, the vehicle that's being used, it's estimated can go to high speed levels. It does not achieve an average speed that qualifies as a true high-speed lane, either under our federal definition or what's now acceptable on the international standard. I think the administration, of course, is pushing that project because it does hopefully satisfy some of my yearning for the private sector to become involved. And also, it could serve as a model. A small thing happened on the way to sort of achieving the president's goal, which he stated here before the State of the Union. Within 25 years, our goal is to give 80% of the Americans access to high-speed rail. It's a laudable goal, but even in Florida, that project, when it's complete, and even if it has public-private partnership, is not a high-speed line. It is a nice people mover. It has good revenues from the Orlando airport to the tourist area. And I think the vision for the future should be, again, developing some of these corridors, and start with the Northeast Corridor, which is an incredibly valuable public asset. It stretches from here, where we're sitting today, all the way up to Boston, owned by the federal government, but not properly utilized, managed, or has and there's no plan for development of that corridor for the future. Amtrak so far is keeping that sort of in-house, wanting to do little pieces of that in this expensive plan, and I think that that's the wrong way to go. Right now they're looking, and I heard Lautenberg came out with a proposal to do a couple of tunnels and maybe some other improvements. They're looking at sort of taking pinking shears around the edges and dragging this out and expecting the Congress to pay along the way. I spent quite a bit of time on our New York trip with Amtrak officials, and we tried to elicit from them their plans for the future. And unfortunately, they have no plan in looking at either, say, 50% of this here, from here in Washington to New York, or New York to Boston, as a project that they would put up for tender. And that's where the rub will come, and that's where some of the discussion's going to come. They don't want to give that up. Of their 27 or 28 million passengers, half of them are in the Northeast Corridor. That's the only thing that breaks even, and they want to maintain control over that. Of course, you all have difficulty getting into that fight. You're not looking for a food fight. You're looking for business, and that's part of my responsibility. But I'm hoping that we can convince the administration and others that we do develop the Northeast Corridor. It makes the most sense. It's the most congested corridor, has the most potential for benefits for the entire country. And again, it could be a great model for success across the land. The other challenge we face, quite frankly, is in limited budget times, you've got to look at projects that are going to be attractive to other partners, state and local partners. We've already seen some of the projects, and unfortunately, FRA, I said yesterday, part of the administration's problem is FRA, and no offense to them, they're not a grant agency. They're a regulatory agency. We need to better manage and better administer and make better decisions in the very beginning on these projects, and then target the projects. It's great to have the administration willing to put $53 billion into these projects, but if we're not going to get state and private sector participation, what have we achieved? And we can leverage that, and we should be able to leverage that $53 billion dramatically, and have some great successes with that kind of money if it's properly done. So those are some of the things that we have to sort out. Some of you are familiar with the issues. I think we'll have a couple of good opportunities. Right now, my major focus the next week or so is to get a FAA bill out. I authored as chairman of the Aviation Subcommittee from 2001 to 2007. Back in 2003, the last reauthorization, in 2003 it expired. It was a 4-year bill in 2007. We've done 17 extensions. and that's no way to run our nation's aviation system as far as policy and federal participation in projects and funding determination. So my goal is the current 17th extension expires March 31st, is to have that out. Concurrently, we will be doing a series of hearings. The first hearing starts next Monday. Invite all of you to what is it, Beckley? Beckley? Beckley, okay. It's not Berkeley, it's Beckley. Beckley, West Virginia. Hope to see you there. That's Mr. Ray Hall's district and his hometown. I thought it'd be nice in a bipartisan manner to start the first major transportation bill rewrite hearing in his hometown. And we may end up in my hometown in Central Florida sometime in March. We'll be announcing that date. But we will be doing hearings and listening sessions and forums around the country. We start in Philadelphia, I think on the 17th, the 18th. We're up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Rochester, New York, and then we go to Columbus, Ohio, and Indianapolis, Indiana. And then we're up in Chicago on that Sunday afternoon. Come and join us in Chicago, and then from there we fly to Portland and over to Vancouver, state of Washington, down to Fresno. And at that one, you might want to come out or send some folks out, which is we'll highlight probably some of the issues with the California project. Then we're going to do a joint hearing, I think it's on the 23rd, down in Los Angeles with Barbara Boxer in the U.S. Senate, sort of an unprecedented bipartisan approach and bicameral approach to coming out with a major transportation piece of legislation. We have a couple more stops in Oklahoma City and Memphis, Tennessee, Jonesboro, Arkansas, and we'll be down in Miami and invite you there on March 4th if you want to see where all of it's coming together in Florida. That morning we're going to visit the Miami Intermodal Center, which is one of the projects that I've been involved in, and one of the projects in Florida we're doing right. It's a pretty impressive intermodal center, $1.7 billion project with commuter rail, with a local metro rail, future, hopefully, connection with high-speed rail, and a people mover to the airport, all coming together in one project. Is pretty dramatic, and that's on March 4th. So you're welcome to participate at any level. You're welcome to keep your mouth shut, fall asleep during the rest of the presentation, whatever you want to do. So that's a little bit of what I had to say this morning and where we plan to go. You can be part of it. I'm not real happy, but I'm going to have to do a transportation bill extension, and my leadership asked for it on the floor next week. I wanted a shorter term and try to get a longer term, and I would like to do a 6-year authorization. That's also where you would find what the administration's asking for or asked for yesterday in that bill. But the terms of how that money is spent is something we'll decide, and you can help us decide in the best way and the best positive way to move forward high-speed rail projects. So some of you have done projects around the world. We want to hear from you. I want you to participate, and we want to make certain that we craft the legislation so that you who know how to do this best can participate, be part of it, and we can have successful projects and not egg on our face. So that's a little of my quick commentary this morning. See, I'm getting a little antsy over here. Did you want to do some questions, or do you want to be nice to me?
Yes,
okay.
Mr. Chairman Mica, I'd like to ask the first question if I could. We need some water here, by the way.
No, I need dark coffee.
Oh, okay. Thank you. You talked about public-private partnerships. We have a panel this morning on that subject, and I'd like to get your thoughts on what the federal government might be able to do to stimulate private investment.
Well, we've got to define public-private partnership. The whole thing in our bill is going to be the definition of public-private partnership. So we need your we need your ideas on this, and I don't think we really have the best ideas yet in developing the language that would entice you to participate. But I believe if we properly define the terms and we provide incentives too, we can provide incentives. The federal government has all kinds of tools. We can do we don't have to do all cash out. We can do various types of backing, full faith and credit on some of these projects. And these are all mega projects too. We're talking multi-billion-dollar projects, and I'm not afraid to spend that kind of money if we protect the public's interest. So it's going to be a fine line of making certain that we have incentives. Nobody in this room is going to get involved in any of these projects if it's a charitable activity or you're going to lose money on it. If there are any takers, let me know right now. I want to talk to you. But again, there has to be that balance. So I'm looking for that definition that will make you want to participate, that will make us maximize any use of federal and public dollars in these projects, and it can be done. Minimizing the subsidization, maximizing the participation, yeah.
Chairman Mica, again, this is Robert Rickard from Macon, Georgia.
Yeah. Do they need an interpreter? Can you all understand?
No, you just have to learn to listen slow.
Okay.
But in all seriousness, I would suggest, Chairman Mica, that you engage the U.S. Conference of Mayors. These projects inevitably are going to involve transformation of local downtowns. If you're trying to bring high speed into the downtown areas, you're transforming downtowns. Mayors, not only do they come in all different shapes, sizes, and partisan, you also have the ability by engaging mayors to work within mega regions, which often cross state lines. Mega regions, for example, the one I'm most familiar with in the southeast, runs from Charlotte, North Carolina to Greenville, South Carolina to Atlanta, Georgia to Birmingham, Alabama. It's hard to get those 4 states engaged. Mayors along the route can be, I think, an especially valuable tool for you, and could, maybe with the right leadership, provide some of your financing. We've been looking at something called value capture, the increase in land values around the stops and stations. If you dedicate that to maintenance and operation of the high-speed rail, you may have solved some of your financing problems as well.
Yeah. Maybe you saw the last slide there too, that we had a picture of some of the area around the Northeast Corridor, what it looks like in the United States versus some of the European models where they are putting in high-speed. Anytime you make good transportation improvements, the development, tangential development is incredible throughout history, whether it's the railroads, whether it's the interstate, airports, and here I think that's very important. I have talked and offered to the mayors to participate. People think this is a closed process. Now, some of you are afraid of elected officials and you don't want to rock the boat, and if you tell Mica something publicly or someone else that your contract's going to be zeroed out or something. But there are ways to get us the information, your ideas. We welcome them. And again, when we get through crafting this legislation, the good news in that as we have this sort of confluence of my support of high-speed rail, my interest in it, and I think we've awakened interest across the country. We put together some initial legislation now that probably needs to be modified. But then you have the Obama administration, they want to put the cash in. The question is doing it right, getting it right, and then maximizing all of that. So that's our challenge right now.
Next question.
Ray?
Yeah, Ray Chambers. You're exactly right. The question of taking $50 billion sounds like a lot. You were talking about somewhere a year or so ago about Lone Star. But then the leveraging of it, and as you and I have discussed previously, It seems that the RIF loan program holds a tremendous opportunity if you could mix it with grant
Absolutely.
money.
We have
And electric
$35 billion sitting in the RIF loan not being used. So redefining how the RIF, is that a reporter? Is that Adam over there? How the hell did you get in the room? Okay. But we had discussions yesterday about that RIF, TIFIA. TIFIA works fairly well. Let's make it work better. RIF doesn't work at all. Let's make it work. But these are the definitions. And in fact, next week, I haven't announced this, but I'm going to bring on the departing Secretary of Transportation from the state of Florida. Many of you work with Stephanie Kopolosis, and she worked on the last bill. And she's going to lead a group of national secretaries of transportation and other transportation leaders who have had to deal with the federal government, the federal bureaucracy, the federal red tape. And her mission, she's agreed to come up for a couple months and work on this as we develop the bill, is to go through and eliminate the unnecessary regulations, the red tape, the hoops that she has had to go through as a Secretary of Transportation in trying to develop projects. So I'm asking her to come. She'll be on staff, special counsel for our committee, to help coordinate that effort. And she starts Monday, and the first time you're hearing it. So some of you know her. You can work with her. We want not only the secretaries of transportation, but we want the mayors and others who've had to deal with the problem. Have any of you dealt with the federal government? Isn't it a joy? You know, sort of like getting root canal work done.
Almost as much fun as being in the federal
Yeah.
government.
Speak up.
Can't hear you. It's real loud, like you're yelling at your.
Hello,
Yeah, there you go.
I'm Emmy Louie. I have a clarification on just a simple question. In the video, there was a mention about an infrastructure bill of 2011. I think Thomas Hart mentioned
Yeah,
that in the
right.
video. And then you mentioned the transportation bill. How does those two
Okay.
relate to each other?
Well, people come up with good ideas, and Hart's already given me his outline of what he'd like to see. We will look at that. Now, to pass a separate bill, I'll tell you, it's pretty difficult. It took 11 years to do a passenger rail reauthorization. Oberstar and I did the first one in 11 years. My interest was high-speed rail, and that's what we crafted in there. As I said a few minutes ago, that needs to be updated and revised. The idea is that the association has, or that Hart has, and you have, we will look at all of those. We will use that as authorizing language when we refine it and put it in. That will be the direction for the next 6 years in the guideline, and what you can do from the federal level. All our policy relating to high-speed rail will be in that. And that door will close, and I guarantee it probably won't open for another 6 years, because these bills are very difficult to craft and bring together. So you just heard me. I gave you an outline of open forums. 4 of those are hearings. I'm not doing all of them as hearings for 2 reasons. One, the hearings are very costly to conduct. And secondly, the hearings are a little stuffy, and you don't get to participate. But just like in New York, we did the hearing and then we did the roundtable. Anybody who came, anybody who was bothered to come to that meeting had a chance to participate. We waited to hear from them. So this is not a closed process, and we welcome your ideas. Yeah, a couple of quick more and we'll go.
Mr. Chairman, about 3 years ago.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right, is it on?
Yes.
Alan Wolken with Infraconsult. Around 3 years ago, we sat in Lyon, France at a PPP conference to learn how our counterparts across the ocean do these things. And one of the messages that came out was there's a true P, the public side, in Europe. And their investment per capita in high-speed rail and in infrastructure far exceeds our per capita infrastructure, investment in infrastructure. How are we going to get away from the fact that we just really do need some more money into this system?
Well, let me tell you what my dad used to say. My dad used to say, it's not how much money you get always, it's how you use it. The public is very skeptical right now. I'm very skeptical. Would I give Amtrak $53 billion more, or the way we've done this so far? I'm sorry, I wouldn't. We've got to make certain that we have some successes here. And we've got to get this. The United States hasn't done this before. Now, Acela tried this. You know the Acela story. The tender was bungled. The lawsuits, I think, cost almost as much as the capital equipment. They bought a European design, the tilt train, modified it, made it wider. It couldn't tilt because it was wider, they found out, and now would hit other trains. So that they put metal wedges in, so it wouldn't tilt. So now it doesn't go faster. The catenary doesn't match. They bought equipment that they didn't have brakes for. We closed it down, remember, for 5-6 months because we didn't have slightly important things like brakes on the train. And Amtrak, I was on Amtrak the other day when we went up to New York, and I'll give you the GAO study I had conducted, that when you buy a cup of coffee, it doesn't cost you $1, but we'll say if I paid $1 for it, it costs the taxpayers $2. So is this what you want to invest in? We also subsidized every ticket last year, $54.80 cents. People are skeptical. I also have 100 new members of Congress that are very conservative. And if I'm going to say that I don't have a plan, or the money's going to go down a rat hole, or look at how they just spent money. I mean, some of the projects have already come back. The Ohio thing was not a viable project. Wisconsin, they didn't want to participate. So we need to straighten out what our priorities are, how we proceed, how we provide the least amount of subsidization. That will require subsidization, and it's heavy public investment at the front end. But we've got to have some successes. Imagine if I build California and nobody rides it. I was very concerned about Florida. I know that the first leg of Florida is not it was sold as high-speed rail. It's not a high-speed line. It goes about 80 miles. It takes about 1 hour to get there. What's the average speed? What's the speed by law? 110. We watered it down in Priya for Amtrak, but it's not a high-speed line. But I do know, having looked at that route from 1982 with Senator Hawkins until currently, from the Orlando airport to the tourist area, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, you have the traffic to robustly support a system. When they offered us $1.2 billion, but said you had to build the whole thing, not going to work, folks, because you're not going to get the money out of the state legislature. They're broke. And you're not going to get the money out of locals. And the worst thing I could have is a project in Florida or any place else that's a failure or heavily subsidized. Now, we got that up to 90%, and I don't even have a problem with 90% on some of these projects. That's how we started the interstate in this country, a 90-10, remember? But the point here is you've got to have some successes. And I know it's difficult for you. You're saying, oh, well, I just wish they'd sort this out and don't get us into this. This is too controversial, and we don't want to get our hands dirty. We don't want to say anything because we'll pee off this one and we won't get that one. But it does take people like you to do the education. It takes people like you to come with the ideas for financing, developing, investing in this, and partnering. So I'm counting on you, and I'm glad the association is together. You have a lot of firepower, but you've got to help us get the rest of this all coordinated. And then when we craft that that legislation. This is going to be done between now and September, come hell or high water, because the country needs a long-term infrastructure policy, a bill, an outline, and that's what we're going to do together. We have got to do that, and it's got to be the best possible to make high-speed rail a reality in the United States. There's no reason. We have a couple successes. If we have a couple of successes and you make it possible, you cannot imagine what will happen in the future. And whether it's the president's vision or my ideas, I think that we'll all do well in the future. Thank you.
Let's everyone stand for a applause for Congressman Mica, our true leader on true high-speed rail. Thank you, John. I appreciate it.